So, good morning. My name is Laura Mickham. I'm the director of the Sally Bingham Center for Women's History and Culture and the curator of Gender and Sexuality History Collections in the Rubenstein Library. I welcome you to Duke and to the library and to the Bingham Center. I want to offer a special welcome to the Griot and Gray Owl participants today, but also our many wonderful Duke and Durham and Durango community members and others who have joined us today. I am so excited that we're all here together to spend some time with Mandy Carter in this wonderful exhibit, Mandy Carter, Scientist of Activism, which was curated with intention by Duke PhD student Kamal Pope. And you can see that it takes up this entire space, which we love, this space of queer resilience, of queer joy. And we will spend about 30 minutes in this space with Mandy herself giving us a tour. And then we will go down the hall to the Holste room and have some time for reflection, for arts and crafts, if you feel like doing that, for writing, and then we will have lunch.
Sound good?
Without further ado, I welcome back into this space, Mandy Carter.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Humbled and honored. I always start out by Mandy Carter, she, her, hers, born November 2nd, 1948, part of the baby boomer generation. What I'm excited about, actually, is I think this is your inaugural, as I understand that right? In one way, the idea that this came from, we have an organization called Southerners on New Ground, SONG. Some of you have heard about it or not. It came out of the idea of someone said, what if? What if we looked about organizing in the South that would connect race, class, culture, gender, sexual orientation, food justice, language justice, and you keep on adding more as the years go by. Well, this is our 30th anniversary year. But I want to back up a little bit, and I just want to say, also thank you to Laura, to Sally Bingham, but also a good friend, Jeanette Stokes, who actually underwrote the ability to do this. I would say, in terms of what we're going to do today, I would also like to put out an invitation. This is 2023. Next year is 2024. It's the 60th anniversary of Freedom Summer, when people went down to Mississippi, had to figure out their right to vote. And remember, women never had it. So now we're in this new generation. The possibilities are extremely wonderful. And I also say if you get pushback, it probably means you're making a difference. So I want to start really simply. And I guess when we get back in there, we don't have time to get all your names and pronouns. We'll get that some of there later. But I start here. Life happens. Our mother didn't know where she was born, had me, Ronnie, and a sister, Dolores. I'm the youngest. And she put us into a foster home, not a foster home, a home for unwanted babies in Albany. Anyone from New York State, Albany, New York. Went from the home for unwanted babies, got to the Albany Children's Home, 140 in Schenectady, in Albany. That is now Russell Sage College. The home got sold, so then we ended up with a black farm family down in Chatham Center, New York. At the age of 12, I got my period. She was worried about me having babies and sent me off to Schenectady Children's Home. I have to tell you, the thing that really was a game changer for me, and this will be one of the things on which you're going to write about it, what was it that got me in the direction of wanting to do this kind of organizing? Not just me, generationally. We had a young white staffer from an organization called the American Friends Service Committee, Quakers. Kind of familiar with it or not, right? And this is like 1963, 64, 65. He was saying that the Quakers believe in full equality and justice for all. And then he said this thing I didn't quite get at the time, the power of one. All right. Then he said, we have a high school work camp in the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania who would like to go. Game changer. Because when I went at the age of 17, they had resource people coming in. And there was this white, young, folk singing couple called Guy and Candy Carowin. Have people heard of the Highlander Center? Maybe not. Have you heard about Rosa Parks? Have you heard about Dr. King? Well, the Highlander Center was started many, many years ago in like the 1923 or so to intentionally bring black folk and white folk together to strategize, communicate, organize. And out of that, Candy Carowin, I was so impressed. As a white couple, they were taking a tape recorder and documenting the freedom songs and the freedom meetings in the South. One of the groups was called Freedom Singers. Bernice Johnson Reagan, Sweet Honey in the Rock. And I also was a cheerleader. This is Schenectady. I was a Mount Pleasant High School cheerleader. But I only say that because where does it start for each one of you? Like, why are y'all here? Why are you on your journey? So this display case is just the beginning. Number one, I think there's terms for all these. It's like these, what do you call, oh, Foundations of Carter's Activism. But you could put your name in there as well, all right? See it later. Can we move to the next? Number two. One of the things that I must say, has anyone ever been to the March on Washington at all or familiar with the August 28, 63 March? You know, they had just had their 60th anniversary. Well, one of the things that happened, in addition to finding out about what was happening around the issue of nonviolence and what's happening down in the South, King, when he organized the August 28, 1963 March, one of his main strategists was Bayard Rustin. Bayard Rustin, black, gay, came from a single mom, but also there was an issue about anyone knowing if Bayard was gay, was that going to be an issue or not? But because of all the conversations that happened in the long run, it turned out that A. Philip Randolph had no problems with that issue. You know the film Rustin's out there now. Has anyone seen it yet? Okay. But do yourself a favor. But I would say that I was like 14 when that march happened. I thought, what march are you talking about? But it turned out that when we decided to start doing Southerners on New Ground, another organization called the National Black Justice Coalition, we wanted to know, what does it mean if you're going to bring all of who you are? Black, woman, man, however you want to identify, and as a black lesbian. Well, when they decided to have the 50th anniversary of the march, Bayard Rustin has a partner, Walter Nagel. Walter Nagel was Bayard's last surviving partner. And we decided for the 50th anniversary, what could we do to bring all the issues together and the peoples and the names? So we had the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington in Washington, D.C. And since that time, we decided to figure out we could form something called the Bayard-Rustin Commemorative Alliance. Not just to honor Bayard, but all that Bayard was. But also think about people like Audre Lorde. When they had that march for the 20th anniversary march, real quick, Audre Lorde was invited to speak. Pushback, unbelievable. No, we're not going to have no black lesbians speaking up on, yeah, well, she did. And that was 40 years ago when you think about it. And then you think about Power of One. I have to make these words matter. And Audre Lorde was part of that. So this is just really now, with all due respect, you might have heard someone just recently say, where are the women? And so you see all these men, with all due respect, but we have this conversation about rallying the people, but how do you make sure when you start something, you're excited about it? How do you make sure everyone is involved and included if they can be? And we just did the 60th anniversary of the march, and for the first time they had a trans person speaking out on that stage, in addition to all the other things. Anyone in the sororities and fraternities, AKA, deltas? Yeah, a lot. But that was part of what that was, a lot of young kids too. So this is about rallying the people. Next. You can come back on your own time. I want to make sure I keep on time with this. Is this okay? Is this working? All right, great. So here we have, this is what I love. I love dates. And one of the things that happened, by the way, after I left the home, you age out at 18. So I ended up going down to New York City, and I just happened to come across this place that was called the League for Spiritual Discovery, LSD. It was run by who? Timothy Leary, believe it. At the end of the summer, you might remember the Summer of Love, 67, everyone was going to San Francisco. So we said, three of us stuck our finger out, and we said, we want to go to San Francisco. And in San Francisco, they had a thing called the Haight-Ashbury Switchboard. And they had a Rolodex. If you went into the office, they'd put you up for a few days, whatever. So the card that they picked for me, Natalia, and Toshi was Vincent O'Connor with the Catholic Peace Fellowship. I couldn't believe it. So I got to stay with him. And when I got to stay with him, they were organizing one of the first nonviolent CD actions against the war in Vietnam. So I ended up going down to Carmel Valley. They were talking about, well, we need some people willing to get arrested. I have no parents. I had no worried about that. So I did. So I got arrested, spent time in Santa Rita prison farm. This is just one of the examples. But the other part that we decided was figuring out, in addition to nonviolent CD, how were there other ways that we could find some way to put ourselves into a situation to underscore the importance? If you remember, Petra Kelly was doing a lot of work around Greenham Common, stopping the Euro missiles going over to Europe. And then we said, but wait a minute, where are they coming from? Right here, Seneca, New York. So we decided with the War Resisters League, I think with a couple of other groups, we organized a women's peace walk, literally from the downtown Durham Library to the Seneca Women's Peace Encampment up in Seneca, New York. It took us a month. So it was called the Women's Peace Walk, What You Need to Work. No, Women's Peace Walk to Women's Peace Camp. My good friend Duffy Baum, we walked 40 miles. We went how many days? 30 days. But one other note, we rode every mile of that in advance. Every gas station, every phone booth, every place where maybe we could stay. It took us 30 days to get there. We got to the Women's Peace Encampment and got back in one day. But that was an amazing journey, who we talked to, what it meant. Power of one, figuring out how you can make a difference. Thank you, Duff. Next. Now, are people familiar with all this pride? Y'all know some of this? I mean, I don't. I'm getting used to it. But this is also going to go in, there's a woman named, there's an office of LGBT gender studies. That's going to be put in that office. It's that they have it. What I love is that the original flag was going to be 7. They ended up with 5, and then you get more of these added on. I think in symbolism and what you look at really makes a difference. It's a powerful image. And then next we have what I would say probably the foundations of what I would call Southerners on New Ground. When we had does anyone remember the name Harvey Gantt? Yep. Right? Jesse Helms, kinda. Remember Jesse Helms in 1990 took on Harvey Gantt, probably one of the most dynamic, unbelievable races that ever happened. Well, it turned out that when that race was going on, one of the things that Southerners on the Ground, when we started it, it's the 30th anniversary now, we said that we're about building transformative models in the South that connect race, class, bum, bum, bum. But we said, but how can we even figure out how we could actually put that in practice? Well, it turned out that Mount Aleph Pickle Company, what do they grow? Cucumbers. There was a man who sliced his leg. He left them out there. And it turned out that that was one of the most horrific things that could happen to someone working in those fields. So we had a thing with the Immaculata Catholic Church, and they're organizing a meeting. How can we figure out how we as consumers, as advocates, can be a part of that? So they organized a walk from Mount Olive Pickle Company all the way to Raleigh, the state capital. So one of the other co-founders, Mab Segrist, and I joined it. And what was so remarkable is that every meeting was in Spanish. And for the first time in my life, I had to put the headsets on, and I think this is what it means to have to know what your culture is, and then how do we make sure that gets transmitted. It took 5 years, they got a union. So this is with all due respect, this is like one of the symbols of song. It's like a heart kind of thing. But one of the other co-founders of Southerners on New Ground is a woman called Suzanne Farr. Homophobia, a weapon of sexism. Mab Segrist is also one of the women who has written as well. Pam McMichael, in fact, we're having a meeting out at Franklinton Center. But also talking about Bayard Rustin, walks, boycotts, getting people engaged, language justice. So this really ended up probably being a really profound kind of not just LGBTQ, but equality and justice for all. So that's that. Next. Now this is the case, but this is the living room. We want to have people come here and meet around and you do some yak if ever you're around. But that's part of what this is about. And some of the questions on there are the ones you're going to have when you go into your room and think about what that is. Now this is something that I really thought, music, spoken word, dance. How does culture have some way impacting how we make change? So Mimi Farina and some other artists who were out in Mill Valley, California, decided they wanted to find out how can they do concerts that would raise money for people in prisons. So they ended up calling a group called Bread and Roses. But also here in Durham, when we were thinking about in 1990, well, what are all the women's music festivals? Michigan, some of those women's music festivals, some other jazz. We said, well, why don't we start a women's music festival that would connect politics and culture? And we called it Rhythm Fest. Our very first one was down in North Carolina in 1990, and one of our workshops was about the Helms-Gantt race. But this is music. Toshi Reagan, Bernice Jackson Reagan, did a concert here. Baez has done a concert here, and Kate Clinton. So we did a thing called Real Women's Production, Bread and Roses, bringing it all together in terms of how you make change happen culturally. And also not, like, again, and not just only in English in terms of what that might be. But the living room we're going to use to have some yak and figure out what else is going on if we're having some conversation. And you'll see that on your papers. But if you're going to be here long enough, feel free to put a thing up there. I would appreciate it. It's not just about me. It's about what we do. Next, going this direction. How am I doing on time, Laura? All right. So here is probably the one thing we have that is actually more of a digital. The War Resisters League is 100th anniversary this year. So a good friend of ours named Kim decided to figure out how could she take articles, lectures, brochures, and think about 1923 to 2023. This is all interactive with the, I hope I don't mess this up, but it's all like, what do you call this? Touchscreen, thank you. A really great job. In fact, my question is, when I was on a plane the other day, I had like a 6-year-old with one of these in their hand. You know, I mean, what is that? But for a lot of people, not only in English, it's also in other languages, this might have more impact than sitting there looking at a book. But this is a digitized thing that covers literally from 1923 to current. And then we had an office here in Durham called WRL Southeast, which is part of the effort that we've done. And then we get into activate young people. Here we go. Sweet Honey in the Rock, Bernice Jackson Reagan, thinking about when they met her down in with Guy and Candy Carowin. And Baez came and performed here, gosh, several times at the Page, I think. In fact, she now has a movie called I Am the Noise. Is that the Baez? But still very active. But one of the things I appreciated about Sweet Honey in the Rock, when someone comes to perform, they do workshops. They don't just perform, they said who we are, why we do it, what we do, how do we connect with a lot of the legacy, and what are the connections with a lot of people culturally. And so I think we've had a couple of times that they would be here, but we have a lot of local, like a lot of artists, a lot of local talent that's in here as well. But activate, can I just ask real quick, how many people are like between the ages of 18 and 20? 18 to 20. Younger? Older? 20, 25? 25, 30? All right. How old are you? 23. So did I say, yeah. I'm just curious because I'm just trying to think of the age range because I'm sitting here, I used to be 23 once, I can vaguely remember. But my concern is how do we have conversation? What is it we would be on the same page about? And how would we know how to interact with each other? And what are the current things that you're all going home to? And what that might be. But I've just been thinking about that, poetry, music. Now because of COVID, a lot of people are on the Zoom, on that part of it as well. So this is around a lot of work around activate young people. And then I think the one here is the one that I'm probably most proud of in one way. When my talk, it's called Electoral Politics and Voter Mobilization. Remember when Harvey Gantt was running against Jesse Helms? That probably was one of the most dynamic, unbelievable, who could know that voting would matter. But because we ran a little campaign around it, we couldn't have contact specifically with Harvey Gantt in Senate Vote 90. But after it was over, I got to meet him. And so there's a picture of Harvey and I meeting. But Harvey integrated Clemson University down in South Carolina, thinking about that. And then by Obama. When I thought about two people that ran, a woman, Hillary Clinton, and a black man, son of an interracial marriage, that was never ever supposed to happen. But now we are where we are now. What do you do with that? But then who was the starting out to figure out how that might make a possibility, why it really matters, and young folk trying to figure out how they vote. So this idea is, and I love this, silence is the voice of complicity. You ever hear someone say something? You know, I'll let that go. I don't want to say anything. And then, well, no one's saying anything, you know. And I remember when we did our first, like a float in Pride in San Francisco, we had Sister Sledge, we are family. So you get all these wonderful quotes that are on here. And then on the other side, come out voting, blah, 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 blah. And then finally, wrapping it up, so we can get to your writing assignment. Does anyone, who keeps things? Is anyone keeping stuff, y'all, scrapbooks and whatnot, and on purpose, intentionally, or just that you just do that? I tell you, archiving is critical. Think about it. You know, when you try to think about it. And now my only question is, everything is so digitized, how can you save that? That's a piece of paper. And how can you make sure that that somehow gets done, or whoever comes up with those great ideas are. But this whole thing was around an organization we started called the National Black Justice Coalition. The original name was called the National Black Gay and Lesbian Leadership Forum. We were trying to figure out, as black folk who are gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and allies, power of one, can we form some kind of a group, some kind of a way, no matter where you are, how you go about your daily business, but also in the South, how many historically black colleges and universities y'all got? HBCUs or whatever it might be. So we thought if we start an organization, then what's the purpose of it, and what are the practical things we could do? So we started holding these once a year kind of conversations, and But once we started doing that, we ended up getting, I think Linda Villarosa, I think, was the first black lesbian at, what's the black paper? Black magazine. Ebony, Essence. Game changer. Her mom said, yeah, are you going to have this conversation? It's like, yeah, do we really need to say? Yeah, you do. She got a lot of pushback, but thank you, Linda Villarosa, and moms and whoever that might be. I don't know what you want to do with your lives when you get done with your profession, but you think about, you get up every day, you probably have no idea who might be looking at what you do, have an impact. They might tell you years later, you had no idea because I saw what you were doing. That made a difference for me. And or if you feel like, I'll be willing to say something, I'm not going to stand here and be quiet, in all kinds of ways. So now, we're now in our 40th year. Another organization that's still kicking around, and we're having conversations. I think one of the ones that I said, what I thought was good, remember the Loving versus the State of Virginia decision, interracial marriage? It turned out that once that whole thing had happened, we contacted Mildred Loving, and we asked her, what about the idea of same-sex marriage or same-gender marriage? At first she said, I'm not quite sure I get that. Oh, wait a minute, that was me. That's my story. And I want to figure out how I can then take whatever we've done and then pass it forward. So we created this wonderful kind of book around organizing around same-sex marriage, how you have that conversation with family, friends, whatever. But Mildred Loving said that's what Loving is about. Anyone here from Virginia? What's the motto for Virginia? Virginia is for lovers. Someone said some. Anyway. So, and then the final thing before you do your assignment, Meg, where are you? Wait. What I love is that, see all this stuff that goes up around here, they have this big machine downstairs, and how they take it like from a picture, and then they figure out how to, what's that word, blow that up and have that up in terms of framing. And it's a whole kind of, it's like a kind of art for it, and I want to thank Meg, and then also June, was it June? June, who make that happen. And then finally, Jeanette Stokes, Resource Center for Ministry in the South, understands the importance of all this stuff. So with that, can we go do the assignment?
I just want to
We
point
good?
out two more things
Oh.
that I failed to point out. One is that our exhibit designer partner is Complex Creative.
Oh.
It's a local black-owned firm, and we worked with an artist called Trey Seals on the typeface in this exhibit, which is the Mandy Carter typeface, which we commissioned for this.
Isn't that a trip? Am I making any money on that?
So we're going to walk down the hall. I'll lead the way, and we're going to have a chance for quiet reflection and writing, and then eating and drinking.
And snacks. Thank you all, really sincerely, thank you. And I'll stay in touch with you. We got some stuff to do. Appreciate it.